Yo, what is going on, guys? Got a video for you here today from this man whose name I believe is Dr. Orion. This guy gets sent to me a lot. I've watched a couple of his videos. He seems to talk some sense. So let's take a look at this video and talk about what women want. The answer to the question, and this guy is going to give his perspective. Let's jump into it.
Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is what women want. Welcome to the age-old problem. Men have been seeking an answer to this question for millennia. Even Sigmund Freud confessed that this remained an enigma for which he had no solution.
I love how the last video I recorded, literally 5 minutes ago, the woman was trying to convince you that women are straightforward, by the way, and they're very clear with what they want. I just love the contrast between the two videos back to back.
However, at the risk of hubris, I will have to respectfully disagree with the good doctor. And I'm going to put forth in this very video my answer to this question. I'll begin by answering the question more generally, in the sense of an explanation that holds true over time, and close by answering the question more specifically, in the sense of what women today want in the modern social milieu. Let's get to it. The simplest way to explain what women want in general terms is this. Women want what other women want.
That is, that's a crazy way to put it. But it's absolutely true, man. Like, how many times do you see women actively, for example, chase men who are already married? They know. They just want something that another woman has. The same thing goes for pre-selection, guys. Like, the men who get all of the women, they never struggle to get more. It always seems to perk, the next woman's interest when she sees that you have a bunch of attention from other women. As long as you're not just shoving it in their faces and being ridiculous about it, women will absolutely chase the things that other women want. I agree with that 100%.
There it is. Women want what other women want. It's true, but kind of unsatisfying, especially because we very quickly run into a chicken and the egg type of problem. Namely, if women want what other women want, how do those other women decide what they want?
I mean, it's simple. A lot of it is brainwashing. A lot of it is just straight biology that they don't even understand themselves a lot of the time until they reach 35 and, their brain sends them a signal that they're running out of eggs, or they have run out of eggs, for example. This is why everybody markets towards women, by the way. This is why makeup brand... Guys, have you ever seen, you'll have a woman who has no money, but she will somehow find money to get makeup, right? Like, this is why so much marketing is leveraged towards women, because they're significantly more malleable than men, right? There are a lot of men out there, guys. You can advertise to them all day. They're not going to care, But can the same be said of, a lot of women? I'm skeptical.
In response to this, we might have to consider female desire to be a kind of emergent phenomenon that is normatively rooted in a certain time and place. Consider women's fashion. Yes, the designers in Milan and New York already know what they're going to be pushing for the spring lineup 2 years from now. They're attempting to influence taste, but they cannot dictate it. Despite their best efforts, the particular look that will go viral in any given season is still anyone's guess. It just kind of emerges out of the profusion of individual choices at the population level. And once that look gets established, because it's adopted by a critical mass of women, it becomes the standard against which individuals are compared, for as long as it remains the norm.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be a critical mass of women. You can essentially just get celebrities that women look up to dress like absolute garbage, and before you know it, a lot of women will just follow that. Women tend to follow the quote-unquote leaders, follow the icons, in my opinion. But I see what he's saying. That makes sense.
And this is how, in a given time and place, a sizable majority of women always seem to kind of look the same, despite the fact that their fashions are constantly changing. Make sense? A lot of female culture is normative, despite the fact that those norms are always changing. It's kind of like a flocking instinct, and there may be plausible explanations for this phenomenon. Consider the distribution of most traits across gender. While most men and women's distributions are more alike than not, there is a consistent effect that we tend to observe at the population level. That is, irrespective of the trait measured, women's distributions tend to be more peaked, more congregated toward the mean, whereas men's distributions tend to be flatter, creating longer tails in either direction. This means that, relatively speaking, a greater proportion of women tend to be average, whereas a greater proportion of men are more likely to be either abject failures or rampant successes.
Yeah, I think I've seen something similar, the same kind of logic applied to prison populations and mathematicians and things like this. Like, for example, a lot of the most violent people, pretty much all of the most violent people are all going to be men, in the same way that a lot of the outstanding mathematicians and such are going to be men. Men tend to fall into extremes. I think that's most clear probably in the prison system. Like, again, the most violent people are always going to be men because there tends to be a conglomerate at the extreme of aggression, for example.
On some level, nature has chosen males to be the sex on which it experiments. It takes bigger risks with males, and sometimes those risks pay off, and a lot of times they don't.
That's, in my opinion, this is because men are viewed as significantly more disposable than women, both from a biological perspective and a social perspective. Like, again, you look at regular society, if you're a dude and you're feeling down, nobody particularly gives a damn, right? Your feelings are disposable. How you feel on day to day is disposable. Your body is often considered disposable. Things like this. The same thing is true of biology, guys. You can't, you can put like 1,000 dudes on an island with one woman. It's not going to help you repopulate faster, for example. So it's probably a contingency thing as well.
However, risk-taking is an aspect of successful reproductive fitness in males in a way it just isn't with females. As I've said before, the biggest risk you can take as a man is not taking a risk. If you don't do something to stand out in some way as a man, then life will pass you by. You will be unnoticed by your fellow man, and you will be ignored by women.
This is absolutely true, guys. As much as women, for example, sit there and they tell you, oh, I just want a man who's nice, right? I want a man who's got some good morals. This actually ranks really low on the totem pole of what women actually want. They would far rather chase a dude who's highly successful or who's like a music artist or something like this with lots of followers. Like, women try and pull the card where they say they want one thing, but then they absolutely gravitate towards men who are outliers, whether it be financially, whether it be physically or talent-wise or whatever.
The average man is invisible to others. This isn't true for women. Most average women can be reasonably assured of being selected by someone. This someone might not be the man they prefer, but most women do not end up alone due to a lack of interest, which can't be the same. Can't be said the same for men. So if the successful outcome is more or less assured, why would women, or females more generally, expose themselves to unnecessary risk? What would they have to gain?
I mean, here's the thing, you see it all the time in women, guys. Yes, they can get a safe option, but what if they could land a better man, right? Like, you will have women who, until the age of 40, will go out here chasing bad boys because they want to lock down, the highly successful guy. They don't just want any average Joe to have a relationship with or to have kids with or to get married, especially in today's day and age, guys, where women have so much access to men via social media. The truth of it is women just want more. They don't want to settle, quote unquote. I hate to use the word settle. They don't want to, quote unquote, settle for the average guy because, by virtue of the fact that women have these options, they think that they deserve a top tier man. Especially, it gets worse as well when women go out there and they hook up with these guys and they think that hooking up equivalates to them being able to get a relationship, which is just not the same whatsoever.
Evolutionary pressures have pushed women toward the center, which is generally the safest place to be. Just consider how differentially men and women value safety and security. It's well documented that men on the whole are much more comfortable with risk and uncertainty than women are. They kind of have to be. And it's this preference for safety and security that motivates women to keep a close watch on what other women are doing. Because what most other women are doing constitutes the fattest part of the distribution curve, irrespective of what that curve is measuring. And this is where the greatest safety and security resides. Like fish in a shoal, each individual is closely monitoring where the group is moving. Because if they guess wrong and the individual turns left when the shoal turns right, that little fish might find itself very vulnerable and very exposed. And this close intersex observation doesn't stop with fashion trends. Women are looking to other women for information on how to live their lives more generally. A critical mass of female behavior is an indication of where the fattest part of the curve might be, alignment with which will afford the greatest possibility of social safety.
And this is why, by the way, guys, so many women just adopt the safe opinion on things, like on a societal level. Okay, they don't want to have an opinion that makes them look bad. They don't want to say anything offensive, and they like to insist that everybody else has to be in their safe little bubble as well. This is something that pisses me off in modern day, where like everybody just has to say the same crap, or else, you know, women will try and shame you. This is, guys, like this is part of the reason as well why it's just so stupid to go out there and listen to women on a lot of these issues, is because they're not actually formulating their position based on what they think is objectively correct. They're formulating their position and thoughts based on what makes them look the best to others. You know, and if you try and lead a society like that, if you try and lead your ideas like that, whatever you're building is just going to instantly fall apart. Or maybe not instantly, but it will be, for lack of a better word, completely corrupted, because nobody's steering the ship in the right direction. We're just steering the ship in whatever direction feels the best, which is completely ridiculous.
So that's the answer to the question of what women want on a very high level. And this explanation implies that to understand what women want more specifically, we would need to observe how a critical mass of women are behaving in any given time and place. Consider how we would answer that question a few generations ago. What did most women want? Well, what were most women doing? They weren't trying to be boss bitches or ladies who lunch. They wanted to be housewives. Like that was the career most women were aiming at 70 years ago. Now, some people would argue that this historical behavior is conclusive evidence that it's in the best interests of all women to raise kids and take care of homes. And I don't necessarily see it that way. Obviously, women have been evolutionarily selected for traits that facilitate motherhood, traits like gentleness and nurturing, and they may experience satisfaction in expressing those traits in their individual lives. But we also can't ignore the fact that there has been a noticeable lack of optionality with respect to women's life choices for a very long time. When women historically have become mothers and housewives, I don't think we can simply conclude that they were expressing their biologically programmed preferences in vacua. Because when they looked to other women and saw their mothers and grandfathers and sisters and girlfriends all doing the same thing, that was a strong signal as to where the fattest part of the behavioral curve was located. And certainly, deviating from this norm carried great risks to women historically.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, right, you can go be a single mother, you can raise a kid, you don't know where the father is. Hell, you can have multiple kids to multiple different fathers, and you'll have people on the internet clap you on the back and tell you what a fantastic job you're doing. You know, things have become a complete mess. There's like, you know, thank goodness there is more and more social repercussions for women these days, guys. But on average, I mean, the amount of bullcrap that women go out there and do, and they expect no social repercussion, is absolutely insane. And one of the funniest ones of those actually is when women go out there, they hook up with a whole bunch of dudes. Now, they might not face the repercussions for that immediately, but you can rest assured, for example, that a lot of guys are not going to want to date that. They might not say that that's the reason because the dudes don't want to get, you know, dragged over the coals for it, but it's certainly going to alienate a lot of men. I've noticed like a lot of just absolute nonsense that women pull these days, guys, which is considered way more societally acceptable. You know, assaulting men would also be on that list as well. Being completely inappropriate in public, you know, improper gym attire is another big one. All of those sorts of things. Let's continue.
My point here is that it's difficult to tease apart how much of this phenomenon is due to biology and how much of it is due to culture. Great. So let's fast forward to the present moment. If you're a woman looking out at other women, especially through the lens of social media, what are you going to see a critical mass of them doing? It's definitely not getting married and having kids.
Yeah, no, it's just degeneracy, really, is what you're going to see.
At least not exclusively. There is still a norm, but that norm has shifted, and it will continue to shift continuously. And what I'd like to argue is that what you see a critical mass of women doing today is everything. And that's what women want. Everything. Women today want to have all the experiences. They want to have a career and earn a master's degree and start a business and have a baby and get 1 million followers and visit all the countries and eat all the foods and get married and find themselves and take a yoga retreat and blow up the scene, etc., etc., etc. Women want to ride all the rides at Disneyland. They're like completionist gamers. They don't necessarily want everything in the sense of material possessions, but in the sense that they want to have every emotional, relational, and social experience that other women anywhere seem to be having.
And you see, here's the thing about that, guys, is from the man's perspective, it gets to a point where you just say, okay, who the hell cares? You know, why should I be putting in all this effort for women who can never even stay in one place at the same time? You know, like you go out there, you have kids with a woman, and then one day she decides she wants to leave because she wants to explore herself and do the aforementioned yoga retreat. It's a complete waste of a dude's time, man. Because women are so scattered and they think that they can have it all, guys, it kind of leaves men in this awkward position where men just say, you know what? I'm just not interested, right? Who the hell cares what women want at the end of the day? Guys, we're going to be leaving today's episode there. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments. I'm going to leave a link to the original video in the pinned comment or the description, or both, depending on what I remember. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you all in the next one. Peace.